Welcome back to this unnecessarily long Zelda countdown. This is the second part of a 7-part series, and in this one we're ranking Zelda towns from 60th to 51st. If you want to start at the beginning, you can check out the channel or follow the link in the video description. Let's pick up where we left off. Number 60. Goron Village, Spirit Tracks. While it was nice to see the Gorons and their doofy smiling faces show up in Spirit Tracks, this place is kinda blah. Zelda even says the village looks like it's seen better days, and all that happens here is that Goron gives you the freight car, which lets you pick up a pile of ice and bring it back to stop the lava flows that are overwhelming the village. For me, it's notable because when I replayed Spirit Tracks on the Wii U to capture footage, I started getting these bizarre graphical glitches, which only became weirder when I tried to reset the game. In a brief moment of terror, it even seemed like my whole run was shot when my whip turned invisible and wouldn't latch onto anything. But luckily, I got it sorted and never came back here again. Graphical weirdness aside, there isn't much to remember here. Number 59. Aboda Village, Spirit Tracks. Aboda Village isn't a bad place, but it's definitely the lamest of Link's hometowns in the series. It was neat seeing an aged Nico continue the Wind Waker Phantom Hourglass throughline, especially because it's so rare for a Zelda character to make multiple appearances. That said, it's extremely unclear why Spirit Tracks Link lives with Nico, or why he looks exactly like a guy Nico used to know. Aboda Village is also home to Link's engineering mentor, Alfonso, and the only real reason to return is to utilize Alfonso's station and swap out train cars. One interesting factoid about Spirit Tracks is that the European release of the game used different names for most of the towns, and in that version, Aboda Village is called Outset Village, which is a reference both to Outset Island from Wind Waker and to being the first town in the game. With only 3 buildings, there's not much to see in Aboda Village, but if it's meant to represent Link's humble beginnings as an upstart train engineer, point well made. Number 58. Mountain Village, Majora's Mask. Call me an ice clown, but I love an ice town. One of my Zelda wishes is that there were more wintry villages. Even though the mountain village consists of only a Goron gravesite and a forge that won't turn on in the sub-zero temperatures, there's something about the snowy ski lodge vibe that just speaks to me. Plus, the windy soundscape here is fun and mysterious. Now, is it a stretch to call this place a village? Probably, but the game did, so why can't I? It is the final resting place of Darmani, and if you put on his transformation mask, you can scare the crap out of the 2 Gorons who just buried him. And when spring comes to the mountains, you can get this big dumb blacksmith and his conniving buddy to reforge your weapon into the gilded sword. If you're a completionist, you'll come back here later to conduct the famous frog choir, so all in all there's a few quirky surprises tucked away in this little village. Number 57. Symmetry City, Oracle of Ages. The thing about a town with a gimmick, and there are a fair few on the way, is that they're instantly more memorable than a town without. Whether out of superstition or for legitimate magical reasons, the residents of Symmetry City are obsessed with, well, symmetry. And I mean really obsessed, to the point that residents on one side of town won't even move without checking in with their counterpart on the opposite side. When you first visit, the town is a volcanic ruin, but a quick trip to the past reveals the source of the tragedy. The town's central relic, the Toonie Nut, which is a palindrome, get it, has broken in 2. As demonstrated by the city's fiery future, this temporary bout of asymmetry has catastrophic consequences. None of the citizens are willing to break symmetry and deal with the problem, so Link has to run a quick errand for them and get it fixed. Afterwards, the volcano calms down, and the citizens are able to practice their symmetrical tradition long into the future. Like I said, it's a memorable destination, and I dig the quirky humor. Coming in at number 56, it's Whittleton, Spirit Tracks. First things first, it's time to give out our second music award because this place has a bumpin' soundtrack. Seriously, this is a jam. Unfortunately, you won't get to enjoy it for very long because there's not much to do here. I do think the tree stump houses are a neat and unique bit of design for a handheld Zelda, but that's about it. When you first come here, the residents give you clues about how to navigate the adjacent lost woods, but after that the only reasons to return are to fulfill some of the train-based fetch quests. If you play matchmaker for a woman in Papuchia Village, the Whittleton chief will eventually leave and move to Papuchia, denting the already tiny population and creating an unresolved power vacuum. In the PAL version, Whittleton is called Mayscore, which I think is a reference to maypoles, or maybe a reference to flowers, or to spring generally. I don't know. Number 55. Tokai Village, Oracle of Ages. There are only a few towns on this entire list where you encounter a completely unique, one-off fictional race, and this is one of them. The Tokai are reptilian island dwellers, who in fact are named after the Tokai gecko, which appropriately enough is native to Pacific Islands. Just look at this guy. The Tokai are pretty cute too, but they do steal all your stuff when Link washes up on their shores, which makes them a bit annoying as well. Tokai Village is located on the east side of Crescent Island, and is home to an elaborate barter economy. In order to reclaim his missing items, Link must trade bits of his inventory back and forth, and can't leave the island until this task is complete. Like all towns in Oracle of Ages, there is both a past and present version of Tokai Village, which leads to some fun twists and paradoxes, like planting vines and saplings in the past, or seeing a minigame from the past become a minigame museum in the present. I enjoy this part of the game, but I will concede that it's a bit more of an area than a town. Number 54. Death Mountain, Twilight Princess. This place did not immediately strike me as a town, mostly because it's a really ill-defined space. Like, the town obviously includes this sumo arena and these hot springs, but what else counts? Is the entire Death Mountain ascent included? What about the Goron mines? It seems like it because it looks like the Goron elders live in these chambers, but if so, their town is bizarrely spread out and completely overrun by monsters. When you first approach Death Mountain, the Gorons are possessed by a lot of anti-human sentiment, and Goron sentries actively block your progress up the mountain. I think it's the only 3D game where the Gorons are actively hostile towards you, which is upsetting because I love those derpy rock eaters. I just want to be their friend, so fighting my way up the mountain has me like...
Seriously, we're actually on your guys' side! Sorry!
Luckily, the mayor of Link's hometown is a dirty, rotten cheater at sumo wrestling, and he gives Link the tool needed to up his weight class and take on the Gorons in 1v1 grappling matches, the Iron Boots. I think the sumo matches are pretty cool, and of course the best part is that afterwards, you get to be friends with the Gorons. Number 53. Forest Haven, Wind Waker. It's our first town from Wind Waker. I remember thinking at the time how weird it was that the Kokiri had been replaced by those gnarled little Koroks, but in retrospect I think it was a good move for the series. There's not a lot to do here, but I like the music, the atmosphere, and of course the Great Deku Tree. This version of the Great Deku Tree is particularly amiable, and like his Ocarina counterpart, he watches over the children of the forest. After your first time here, the majority of the residents leave to go be forest missionaries around the Great Sea, so the population is pretty meager. Ultimately, the Forest Haven is notable for two main reasons. First, it's the hometown of Makar, the Korok cellist and sage descendant. Most of your time in Forest Haven revolves around Makar, whether rescuing him on your first visit or returning to awaken him as a sage and recruit him as a dungeon partner. The second reason is a bit of a cheat, because it's technically outside of Forest Haven, but it's still part of the Forest Haven Sea chart, so that counts, right? It's the Figurine Gallery, and the recipient of our first Shop Award. I love the Figurine Gallery. I think it's one of the best collectathons in the series, and just a really fun set of side quests. It's also a reason to return to Forest Haven again and again as you complete your tour of duty as a paparazzi photographer. Number 52. Thieves Town, A Link Between Worlds. Thieves Town is basically the better version of Village of Outcasts from A Link to the Past. It has essentially the same layout, and like Village of Outcasts, is an alternate version of Kakariko Village. But unlike Village of Outcasts, it has actual residents, like a masked elder who preaches creepy salvation in the town square, a disgruntled milk bar proprietor, and a variety of singing thieves. As a veteran thief observes, at least there's still a strong musical culture in this town. Like the Village of Outcasts, Thieves Town is home to a dungeon, the Thieves' Hideout, but the entrance is a bit more fleshed out. In order to enter, Link must learn the lyrics of the rather depressing town song, which is fun but also terrible security. It would be like the Pentagon denying entry unless you knew the national anthem. Not sure about that one, guys, but at least it's fun to run around town memorizing the words. As the song says, every time I say I'm a-leavin', this accursed life sets me right back to thievin'. Number 51. Zoros Domain, Twilight Princess. This is another town that kind of disappointed me. I typically really like Zoros cities, so I was excited to see our favorite fish folk rendered in Twilight Princess's realistic art style. But just like Death Mountain, Zoros Domain feels sort of empty. It consists of two areas, a throne room with a deep diving pool, and below that, a large open area with a waterfall. But although this town, if you can call it that, is quite large, there's very little going on. There are no shops, no residences, and Prince Rallis is the only NPC I can name. When you first reach Zoros Domain, it's completely frozen over, and must be thawed out by warping a giant magma shard from Death Mountain. I feel like the developers are offering some kind of catharsis for Ocarina of Time, in which Zoros Domain froze over and there was nothing you could ever do about it. I will say I really like the quest here where you have to fish for a reek fish in order to sniff it and track down the Yeti who keeps eating them. I think that concept is very clever, but it does immediately lead you away from Zoros Domain, and I think we'll move on as well. Thanks for watching part 2. The next installment will be out soon, and there's a lot more towns to visit. Leave your prediction, your opinion, or anything else you've got to say. It also really helps the channel if you like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can be notified when the next part comes out. There may be another unrelated countdown on its way, so you can watch out for that too. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.